Hey all you cool cats and kittens. We're going to go and start our first online Algebra 2 assignment. We're going to start by taking some notes. Try your best to follow along. I've posted a copy of the note sheet on the classroom that you can follow along with. Also feel free to pause at any point, like when I'm asking you to do certain examples. I'll have you pause and try it on your own and then unpause to see what the solutions are. So we're going to be starting our trig unit, and we're going to try to do it in a way where it's better for us to understand, but we're going to start by just talking about what's called some basic angles that we should know from geometry. Okay, but we're going to talk about some vocabulary here. So let's start with this angle right here. Okay, so anytime you see this symbol right here, okay, we know that's a right angle, which remember is 90 degrees. Okay, now when we're doing this, we're rotating a certain way. So we're always rotating from this leg to this leg. So this one we call right here, this is called the initial side. Okay, and where the rotation stops, we call that the terminal side. Okay, so we have the initial side and the terminal side. This arrow also helps us to understand which way we're rotating, because there's technically two ways we can rotate, and we'll talk about that more later. But just once again, this is a 90-degree angle. Okay, and then if I drew this angle right here, so here's my initial side. Right there, remember that's called initial. And let's say I rotate the initial side, let's say I rotate it all the way to here, forming a flat straight line, okay, around this pivot point. Okay, so we should hopefully remember from Algebra 2, or from geometry, what angle this is, but if you don't, it's not the end of the world. But this would be a 180-degree angle. Okay, initial, and then ending here would be my terminal side. Okay, last one that we should know, okay, is if I start with a initial side right here, let's say that's my rotation point. So here's my initial. And let's say I rotate all the way around until I get back to where I started, forming a full circle. So remember, a full circle is how many degrees? And you should know that's 360 degrees. Okay, so those are just some angles that we should somewhat remember from geometry that we're going to use to make other angles in Algebra 2. Okay, so moving on to how we're going to draw angles in Algebra 2. So in Algebra 2, we draw them in a coordinate plane. Okay, just like how we draw our graphs in a coordinate plane. Okay, once again, we have an x-axis and a y-axis. So every time we draw a diagram, our initial side will always be the positive side of the x-axis. So this will always be my starting point of all my rotations. Okay, so rotating from here to here, we've already gone over this. This is called the terminal side, where it stops, where it ends. Okay, this would be a 90-degree angle, okay, drawn on a coordinate plane. Okay, so just to go over, because this is something maybe your Algebra 2 teacher didn't do a good job of teaching, maybe your Algebra 1 teacher did a better job. Okay, when we draw this, we're drawing in a coordinate plane, and we have 4 quadrants, and I'm going to be referring to the quadrants a lot throughout this lesson. Okay, so I want to make sure that we understand. So let's come up here to the top of our notes and let's just review our quadrants. Okay, so let's draw an XY plane. Okay, let's call this our quadrants. Okay, so quadrant 1 is always right here. Now remember, when we draw angles, where do we always draw our initial side? Well, we always draw it right here. Okay, and I rotate this direction, which means if I rotate this direction, I always rotate through quadrant 1 first. Okay, which means when I leave quadrant 1, this section of the plane, I get to here, which would be quadrant 2, okay, in Roman numerals. Okay, if I keep rotating around, I get down to this quadrant, which is quadrant 3. And then once I finish my full rotation, I end in quadrant 4. Okay, so just refer back to this if you need to, or you could just Google XY plane, coordinate plane quadrants if you don't remember, but we need to know our quadrants is referring. And some of your homework problems will refer to quadrants as well. So we need to make sure that we understand what that means. Okay, all right, let's go back down to our diagrams. Okay, so if I had to guess this angle, so it's drawn on the quadrant plane, the only difference is my rotation went a different direction. If we look up here at all of our examples, I rotated up to get 90 degrees. I rotated up to get 180. I rotated up all the way around to get 360, even here. So if I rotate down, what do you think that means? Well, rotating up is a positive rotation. What do you think rotating down is? Okay, it's a negative rotation. So what I did is I went down negative 90 degrees. Okay, so this is negative 90 right here. If I stopped right there, that'd be negative 90. Okay, if I went all the way here, it'd be a straight line. That's negative 180. Well, this appears to be about halfway between negative 180 and negative 90. So this is a diagram of negative 135 degree rotation. Okay, so that's important to know. Okay. Now, just to help with our reference angles here and how we reference them. Okay, so this would be 90. If I rotated here, this would be 180. We know a full circle is 360. Well, what would be down here? What if I rotated through 3 of my quadrants? If I rotate through quadrant 1, through quadrant 2, and through quadrant 3, but don't enter, well, it's halfway between 180 and 360. So we can do some math there, but that would be a 270 degree angle right there. Okay. All right, let's look at this example. This is a good time to pause the video and maybe try to estimate what you think this angle is on your own. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out what you estimate this angle to be. Okay, otherwise go ahead and you can continue playing. So look at the angle. We have our initial side right here. Remember, it always starts on that x-axis, that positive x-axis. Okay, it's rotating down. If it rotates down, we know that's what kind of angle. It's going to be a negative rotation. Okay. Now on your homework, it's going to ask you to estimate an angle, and it's going to be multiple choice. So some of this is going to be, trying to figure out just using some common sense. Is it, which reference angles does it pass? It kind of eliminates some choices. So if I follow the rotation here, if I stopped right here, this would be negative 90. Okay, so it's more than negative 90. It keeps going. Okay, past negative 180. Okay, it keeps going past negative 270. So we know it's somewhere between these two angles. It's somewhere between negative 270 and negative 360. Well, then it's just about, can we make some assumptions here? Okay, well, if I drew the halfway mark, I'd probably estimate that halfway is somewhere in here. Okay, so I'm going to estimate that this is about halfway between negative 270 and negative 360. So I would estimate this is about negative 315 degrees. Okay, if you estimated that it was negative 320, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you said negative 340, I'd be a little bit worried because that's down here closer to negative 360 and less close to the middle. So it's about estimating here. Okay, so what I want you to do right now is we have, well, let's make sure we formalize some of our rotations here. So counterclockwise, I know not a lot of us understand clocks, so I try to think of it differently. But counterclockwise is positive rotations, positive angles. Okay, and I always think this is when we rotate upwards. Okay, so if I drew a plane and start here, this is my initial side, and I rotate this way, that's a positive angle. Okay, versus clockwise, this is a negative angle or negative rotation. Okay, and I always think of this as rotating down. Okay, these two phrases are the phrases I use a lot. Okay, positive angles rotate up. Up is positive. Negative angles, okay, rotate down. Down is negative. Okay, so if I drew a diagram here, there's my initial side. This would be rotating this way. That's a negative angle. Okay, all right, so take a minute. Now's a good time to pause the video in a notebook, or if you printed these out, see if you can sketch these 3 angles on an XY coordinate plane, okay, showing your rotation correctly, okay. Remember, I'm not looking for these to be perfect, but you do need to make them in reference to some angles using the 90 degrees, 180, 360, 270, using those angles as reference points, okay. So go ahead and take a minute, draw these angles, and then come back to me and push play again when you're ready to go over them. All right, starting with 85 degrees. So I draw my XY plane. Okay, here's my initial side right here. I draw my initial side with an arrow. Okay, and we're rotating positive 80 degrees. So if it's positive 85, are we rotating up or down? Okay, we should know that positive angles are always up. Okay, so I'm going to rotate up. Well, halfway between 0 and this reference point, this is 90 degrees right here, would be 45. So we know we're past halfway. And in fact, Is 85 going to be closer to 90 or closer to 0? It's going to be way closer to 90. So when I draw my terminal side, it's going to be very, very close to 90. So it's going to be something like this, not perfect. Okay, and I rotated up a positive rotation. So this would be a diagram of a 90 degree or an 85 degree rotation. Okay, almost reaching that 90 degree rotation, but not quite there. Okay, next one. Here's my XY plane. Okay, draw that initial side. It's always in the same location. It's always that positive x-axis. Okay, it's negative. If it's negative, are we rotating up or down? Okay, we're going to rotate down. So I rotate down, and then it's just about seeing where 45 is in comparison to our other reference angles. Well, if this is 0, and I'm rotating down, this would be a negative 90 degree angle. Well, where is negative 45 in comparison to 0 and negative 90? Well, what's half of 90? Half of 90 is 45, so I know this is halfway between those 2 points. So it's going to be something like this. Now, if I was grading this in person, do you think I would take someone's notes and say, that looks more like a negative 50 degree angle? No, it's not going to be perfect unless we have a protractor and we pull it out and measure it for exact. Then it's never going to be perfect, but we should be able to reference and make good estimated diagrams. Okay, so here we go, 300. Draw my coordinate plane. Oh, that's terrible, I'm gonna start over. See, I'm not even perfect, so you don't have to be perfect, but it's okay to make mistakes as long as we know that we made a mistake. Here we go. Initial side's right here. Okay, 300 degrees. Is that positive or negative rotation? Positive rotation. Which way does positive rotate? Up or down? Up. So I'm going to rotate up, and I'm going to pass my reference angles on the way. Okay, if I rotate to here, that's 90 degrees. If I rotate to here, we've now gone 180. Okay, if I rotate to here, that's 270. Okay, so we're getting closer to 300. So far we've rotated 270. If I go all the way around, that's 360. So really quickly, I just want to reference, I know it's somewhere between 270 and 360. What would the halfway point be? Well, the halfway point, okay, is 315. So we know that the halfway point is 315. We only want to go 300. Okay, so that means that here's my halfway point. Am I going to be closer to 270 or closer to 360? Well, 300 is closer to the 270. So if this is my halfway point, I know I'm going to be closer to the 270 side than the 360 side. So it's going to be like right here. Is it perfect? Doesn't need to be perfect. There's my terminal side, and there's my rotation, drawing my angle which way I rotated. Okay, so that's how we draw angles in a coordinate plane. Now, a couple other vocab words that you're going to be asked to do on your homework is coterminal angles. Okay, so coterminal angles are angles that have the same terminal side, meaning they end in the same location, okay, but rotate more than 360 degrees, more than one rotation around the circle. So pretty much all we need to do to find coterminal angles is we're either going to add 360 to our angle or we can subtract 360. Because think about it. If I go, and let's say this is my rotation, okay, I would say let's estimate this. So I'm rotating positive. Okay, that'd be 90 degrees. This would be 180. So it looks like it's about halfway. So let's say this is 135 degree rotation. Okay, I always start here. This is my initial. This is my terminal. Okay, if I start here and rotate 135 degrees, I end right here. If I start here and I go all the way around the circle, okay, that's 360 degrees. And then I add 135, I'm going to end right here. Well, 360 plus 135, okay, that's 495 degrees. So if you rotate 495 degrees, I go all the way around the circle, and then I go 135 more, I'm going to end the same exact spot as I would if I just went 135 degrees. So that's what a coterminal angle is. Okay, we can also go this way. Okay, I can rotate a negative rotation. So if I rotate negatively, drawing this really looped so that you can see my path here. Okay, if I rotate negative, well, how far would it be if I rotate this far? Well, it'd be negative 90 because it's down, negative 180, and then halfway between 275, or sorry, my apologies, 270 and 180 would be negative 225. Okay, would be the negative. So this angle, and our original 135, no matter how you rotate these three, you're going to end in the same location, making it coterminal. Okay, so let's find some coterminal angles. Remember, the trick is all we got to do is add or subtract 360. We're going to add a full rotation around the circle to my angle to find coterminal ones. Okay, so let's say we start at negative 40. Well, let's draw a little diagram of this. Beep boop. Okay, so we always start in the same location, right there. Okay, negative means we're rotating which way? That's right, we're rotating down. Okay, remember halfway between 0 and 90 is 45, so we're not quite halfway, just prior to halfway. Let's say it's like right there. Oh, that's a perfect diagram, Riley. Okay, so we're rotating this way. Okay, so we want to find other rotations where I'm going to end with the same terminal side right here. So all I have to do is take negative 40 and add 360. Okay, well, negative 40 plus 360 equals 320 degrees. So that would be this rotation right here, starting here, going all the way to there. That's one coterminal angle. Okay, and I can add 360 again to find another one if I wanted to. Add 360 again. Well, that's 600 and quick math there, Riley, 680 degrees. This would be taking this angle and going a full circle, then going 320. Okay, so that's one way. So we just found two coterminal angles. But usually when they ask for two coterminal angles, they want a positive and a negative. Okay, they know that we can just keep adding circles over and over again. So instead, let's take our negative 40 and let's find a negative coterminal angle. Okay, and we do this by subtracting one rotation. Okay, so negative 40 subtract 360. This is negative 400 degrees. Okay, so this would be if I start at this initial side, go all the way around the circle because that's 360, and then you rotate negative 40 more, and that would be that angle. So there's another coterminal. Okay, so when you find coterminals, you usually want to find a positive and a negative coterminal angle. Okay. All right, so go ahead and pause the video. Go ahead and find two coterminal angles for 450, but find one positive and one negative. Push play when you're ready to start back up again. All right, so let's see where 450 is. Okay, 450 is a little bit more difficult because we've gone a full rotation already around the circle. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure this out. So 450, here's my initial side. Okay, that's great, looks great. Okay, 450, if I rotate all the way around my circle, so first of all, which way are we rotating? Well, it's positive 450, so are we going up or down? We are rotating up because it's positive. So I go a full circle all the way around. Okay, that's 450. No, that's 360, my apologies. So we go 360, well, how much is left over? Well, if we do 450 minus 360, we know that there's 90 left over. Okay, so this is actually a 90-degree angle right here. There's my terminal side. Terminal side, that's where we end. Okay, now what we just did by drawing the diagram was we actually found one of the coterminal angles by drawing this diagram. Okay, because we went a full rotation all the way around, which was 360. Well, then how much did we have left over to keep drawing? Well, we had 90. Okay, which means 90 is actually a coterminal angle. Now we can find this by using our math as well, because if I take 450, and remember our rule is just add or subtract 360. Well, if I subtract 360, that equals 90 degrees. So one of my coterminals is 90 degrees. Now, if I take 450 and add 360, well, that's still not going to give, that's going to stay a positive coterminal angle. So we don't want that one. Okay, we want a negative coterminal angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 90 degrees, okay, and I'm going to subtract 360 from it. Okay, so I subtract 360 and I get negative 270 degrees. Okay, and that's another coterminal angle. And I can keep subtracting, or I can keep adding and keep adding. Okay, but just pay attention to instructions, because sometimes, you know, on state tests or something, they'll say find one positive and one negative coterminal. Okay, if it doesn't specify, technically you can just keep adding 360 over and over and over and over again and find all these infinitely many coterminal angles. Okay, but for our sake, I want us to practice finding a positive and a negative, just so we can see those two differences. Positive being rotating upwards, okay, and negative being rotating downwards. Okay. All right, so we just finished the first page of our notes. I know that's a lot. Okay, drawing angle diagrams. I have faith that you guys can, through practice, can figure these out on your own. I'm going to stop this video here, okay, and I'm going to restart a new video for the back page. All right, so hang tight and click over that other link that I posted on the Google Classroom so we can continue our notes.